My name is Corey Gillen. My goal for you today is for you to learn more about the OnCost estimating platform. We're going to take a look at how to create a new estimate and how to save it into an existing project in ConstructionSuite. We're also going to explore the different columns and tools that you will have available inside of your estimate. We're then going to show you how to use our professional proposals and reports that you can provide for your client and the rest of your team. Lastly, we're going to be taking a look at how you can manage your change orders as well as setting up your estimating template so that we can repeat the process that we have already begun to perfect. Right now, what we are looking at when we first open the program is going to be the Today screen. This is really going to provide you with the most recent activity and most important information about your jobs. Now, your recent projects are going to be displayed on the top right, as well as the statuses of those projects. You're going to have access to the activities and to-dos in the summary of all of your jobs, as well as on the dashboard, just a quick financial look at all of the jobs as a whole or individual components of the jobs. So, for instance, here at the top, you're going to have a cost breakdown by classification for either individual jobs or for all jobs as I have currently filtered. You'll also be able to see with our project profitability chart a quick breakdown of the main financial components of each individual estimate. Now, your base estimate is the original projection that your client has agreed to, and that will be the red column here. Your estimated value will be that base estimate plus any change orders minus any credit memos that have affected your projects, any that have been accepted at this point. And now these last three columns are going to be pulling in from your QuickBooks information for the job. So your actual cost will pull from your bills, your credit card charges, any checks, paychecks that are actually being spent to show you where you stand on budget for your jobs. Now your committed cost will pull in from your purchase orders, and obviously your invoiced amounts will pull from your invoices. But that's just a quick, simple breakdown of your cost on individual jobs. Now, to see a more in-depth breakdown of that, we'll take a look at our WIP reporting. Now, this is one of the new components of ConstructionSuite 6 that we've released a few months ago, and this is going to give you a complete in-depth breakdown of all of your jobs, where they stand at this moment, and just a complete total for all of these different classification of your costs. So you'll see each of our jobs listed out on the left-hand side here, a total for all of our projects. And you'll have everything that you could possibly need in here, from your original contract amount, the summary of your change orders for each job, current contract price, which is the composite of those two numbers. You'll also be able to track where you stand on budget with your actual to date, your invoice to date. You'll be able to see the profitability on each job, either percentage or gross profit. You'll even be able to see how well you're estimating using our slippage and grippage tools, which will tell you whether you're typically trending to over or underestimate your jobs. So that's going to quickly allow you to, for whatever date range you would like to generate it for, you'll be able to see really where you need to adjust your process to make your jobs more profitable for your company. Now, there's obviously too many columns here to go into complete depth into, but from this, quickly scan through all the columns here. You'll be able to take snapshots of this information at either any manual point, or you can take automatic snapshots daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. So from this, you'll be able to really just go back in time wherever you've set one of these and compare those with your current information. So just had a question in here that you guys can barely hear me. I'll just move the microphone a little closer here and turn up the audio. All right, hopefully that's a little better. But y'all just let me know if you can still not hear me very well. All right, so yeah, if any of you guys have the upgraded system, ConstructionSuite 6, or even with the trial, you'll be able to take a look in more detail at the individual components here in the WIP reporting. But we're going to go ahead and move along to the actual estimating module. Okay, so today, before we begin creating a job and setting up our estimate, I'd like to show you the estimating tab and what you'll find within this. So just a couple of quick links. You'll have links to any recent estimates that you've been working on, so that you're not having to go into the individual projects to access them each time. And just like we saw on the Today screen, you're going to have a few financial breakdowns, just quick change order summary and the classification breakdown based off of however you have it filtered, either all of your primary estimates or individual jobs. Now, the main thing here will be your estimate templates. So, the whole point of the software here is to save you guys time and money. How we do that, well, one of the primary ways that we do that is through our estimate templates, schedule templates, contract and document templates. So we include a number of these within the system that you can modify any way that you would like. So you'll be able to break these down into categories as you see here. Whichever one you would like to begin with, all you have to do to modify it would be to right-click and edit that template. Now this is also one of the ways that you can launch the estimate templates. So you could just double-click on them or click on the open option here to launch that template for a new job. Now what that's going to allow you to do is really save as much information into your templates as you would like. As we'll see in a second, you can save everything from the basic structure of your job, your categories, subcategories, individual items, all the way down to your quantities, your costs, resources that you might typically use for individual components of your jobs. If you use the same vendor, same subs, you'll be able to save those. Whatever information you need for the most part, you'll be able to save into these templates to eliminate as much duplication of effort as possible. Now, just moving along here on the Create New tab, this is going to, again, give you access to the templates. But if you prefer, you can actually run through the wizard like we're about to do to pull from the estimate templates and set up a number of items for your job. Okay, let's see. Now, the last detail on the estimating tab that we're going to actually take a look in a little detail on would be the items database. So from here, you're actually going to be able to pull in costs from RSMeans Cost Books, which is just a third-party company that we have partnered with a few years ago. They collect cost data for materials, labor, and equipment on a nationwide and local average. So you're able to actually filter these costs down to your local area through the multiplier here at the top. And you can also see, as I have here, this is just a couple of them, but depending on the version of ConstructionSuite that you have, you'll have a number of different cost books. So there's residential, as we see here, there's remodeling, a few different commercial, both light and full commercial, 16 and 50 division for all of these. There are also additional green version cost books if you decide to upgrade to the green version, which is just an add-on to the whatever original level that you have, with these additional cost book, additional lead document management, that type of thing. Now, let's see, it looks like we're currently looking at the RSMeans commercial cost data, and there's our residential as well. And once we select our cost book, we're going to be able to choose or set the multiplier at the top right. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to put in our zip code here. Okay, and if you watch, this is going to adjust the actual cost within the cost book based off of RSMeans averages for your area. For example, when we first loaded a cost book, you'll see that it was the national average, but when we select that multiplier, it can either be based off of US zip code like I just did, or if you're in Canada, you can filter it down by region. Now, within the cost book on the left-hand side, you're going to see the cost book structure in the CSI 16 or 50 division format. Now, when you expand these categories or subcategories, you're able to see more detail in the item breakdown. You can also use the search bar here at the top to easily navigate to a specific place or specific item within the cost book. Now, if we right-click on the column headers here, just like within estimating, scheduling, a number of other places within ConstructionSuite itself, you'll be able to choose exactly which columns are showing at any given time. So, for instance, we could turn on information for the separated actual cost for the individual items. So you'll see that a number of them have multiple costs, one for material, labor, some for equipment, just depending on what that actual item is. Now, the great thing about these cost books is that if you find that one of the RSMeans quotes is either too low or too high for your area, you'll be able to add your own quote using, let me expand one of these, using this button right here. So you'll see that we could put in our own cost. So say that maybe we're spending $175 on this particular item. You can also track which vendor you're actually receiving this from. And you can even pull in complete cost books from a CSV file if your vendors were able to send those to you. So for example, we'll just say that Ajax Supply is supplying this at $175 per cubic yard. Well, this was labor, but you get the idea. So it will pull it in there alongside of the RS means quotes, and you'll be able to use those when we get to estimating and take a look at how that works the exact same way. So you'll be able to insert whichever of those two options that you would like. Okay, now the second component of our items database is the Assemblies tab. So if you go back to the left-hand sidebar where I just clicked and select Assemblies, many of the cost books provided by RS means are also going to provide assemblies, which are essentially lists of multiple items, kind of kits. So let's take a look at one of these. Let's look at maybe these stairs here. Okay, we'll expand one of these. Now again, just depending on what the actual assembly you're looking at, it can have just different classification costs within this kit. So like this one has here, you're going to have a different material, labor, and equipment costs that you can insert directly into your estimates, and these will insert as subcategories with all of the lines underneath, or all the line items that is underneath. Now let's see, so within this, I'll show you how to insert all of this once we get to the estimate themselves, but let's go ahead. Oh yeah, okay, well let's take a look at how you can create your own custom cost book. So the same way that we have the RS means cost structured here within the items and the assemblies, you'll be able to create your own. So we would be able to create, let's see, through the tools right here, we'd be able to duplicate a cost book, or from the list of cost books, you'll be able to add in your own custom one. And then you'll be able to add in the categories, subcategories, whatever level of detail you want, and then of course adding in the quotes, the same way that we looked at for adding the one to the RS means cost. Now, let's go ahead and just create maybe a test real quick. Okay, so we'll open that up. Now it's going to be blank, but you'll be able to, as you see here, add subcategories to it, and then even add assemblies or items to that example. Now, from this, I told you that you'd be able to import from a CSV file. You're also able to export to a CSV file. So if you want to give this a try on your own, you can export one of the cost books that we have in here, put together a test. It will show you the format with the typical column order that you need to have for importing. Now, again, my name is Corey, so if you'd like a one-on-one walkthrough of how that is done, you can feel free to give me a call after our webinar today, and I'd be happy to walk you through it, or any of our other product specialists here on staff would be able to show you around as well. All right, let's go ahead and back up. Let's go to our Today screen again and take a look at the process of actually creating a project and an estimate for that project. Okay, so what I just did is I clicked New and back up to that, so you'll have really access to anything new that you want to create here. But for today, we're just going to look at the project. Now, within the project information, there's a couple of things that you have to fill in here. Now, the project type, that is, let's put in a name. We'll say Eagles Landing. Now, and you see that the project name and the project type are in bold. Those are the two fields here that have to be filled in before you can create a job. Now, the project type, that is used to filter your job down to the different types of work that you're doing, and that will link into your workflows and dimensions, which we will go into in a little while. So let's just choose single-family residential. Now, the rest of this information you can either type in manually, or if you already have your client within the system, you can use their information to pull in here. You'll be able to keep track of whatever job information you need to, your scope of work, special conditions, and so on. And that information will not only track for the job, but that as well as most of the information for your estimates, your schedules, all of that can be pulled into a number of reports as well. So for instance, that scope of work can be pulled into your proposal. Now let's go ahead and finish and create the job. Okay. Once that gets done, we will take a look at it and create our estimate. Okay, there we go. So here's our job. Now, on the actual job overview screen, you're going to see a breakdown of really everything for your estimates, your schedules. A number of documents can be stored here. All of your files will be stored within the project. And this information for your estimates and your schedules, your change orders, your application for payments, and correspondence, all will be pulled into one place here, based off of how you filter your job. Now, a lot of this has changed with the new version. For instance, we now have Google Maps integrated based off of your project address that we have put in when we created the job. But other than that, it's pretty much the same information, just in an easier to read format, to where it pulls the main 6 categories, your activities, your to-dos, the details, files, and contacts into one place. And we've kind of broken it up a number of different ways, but that's really covered in Monday's webinar, which will be just an overview of ConstructionSuite. So let's go ahead and take a look at the workflow real quick, and we'll use that to create the template, or the estimate that is. So you'll see that, like I told you before, the workflows are linked to the project types. Now you can modify these anyway, just like with any of the other templates, to meet your needs, whatever tasks you typically need to complete for an individual project type. Now, all of these tasks can quickly be checked off as you address them. The ones with blue arrows here, that links to a specific event within the software. So we're going to go ahead and create the estimate. So we'll just click that blue link, it launches the estimate wizard. Now let's choose one of our samples here. I'm going to use the residential sample. Okay, it will pull in our job information automatically, and before we generate the estimate, we can set our local tax. So I believe mine here is about 9%. So we'll finish and create that estimate. Okay, once the estimate opens, the first thing that you're going to see is going to be the project totals page. This is basically a summary of the estimate. So you'll see the tabs along here at the bottom. This is always going to be the first one. It will show you an overview of your categories and subcategories. So categories in black, subcategories in blue. Now each of the categories will also be tied to an individual sheet down at the bottom, which will go into more, that will take you into more detail into the individual line item breakdown. But each of the subcategories and categories will have their own breakdowns, or own subtotals, that is. Down at the bottom here, we'll have a subtotal for the job. If you choose to use company overhead margin, it will factor that in to give you your project total. So we'll take a look at the different ways that you can actually add in your overhead margin and different ways of accounting for your profit. So let's see, let's first take a look at one of the categories. So we'll just use framing here. So if I click into that category, it takes us to the related category sheet, and you'll now see that third level of detail where you're able to keep track of your material, labor, equipment, subcontractor, whatever classification costs that you need. Now from here, if you don't need that third level of detail, you can simply just change the method from detailed to lump sum, like I have here for my framing labor, and put in one cost. Okay, so back to the project totals. Now if you want to edit an estimate from the framework that is set in the template that you're using, or if you want to edit a template itself, you can right click on any part of the estimate and you'll see options for cutting, copying, pasting. You can use that for any categories, subcategories, or items the exact same way. So by clicking on add a new subcategory link here, it will add a new subcategory and then allow you to provide the name. Let's see, there we go. So it will automatically highlight that. You can type in the name and of course change these at any point. Now on the category pages themselves, you'll see a similar option. Let me go ahead and get out of there. You'll see a similar option to add the new items. The difference here is that you can add the item manually as I have done, or we can use those cost books that we took a look at earlier. So the items that I have in the estimate already had a quantity and cost associated with them that are pulled in from the template. Our other included templates would not have these filled in, but we are using this example really just to show you how a typical estimate would look and how it would be structured without having to take the time of filling all of that in. So let's take a look at adding from the items database. Let's pull up one of our actual cost books. And then I'm just going to pick a random item. Okay, so we'll just choose this board here. Now, whether this be the RSMeans cost or your own cost, you'll have an arrow on the right-hand side here to insert into the estimate. All you then have to do is tell it the actual quantity per unit, so that would be set as well within the cost book. This one is per square foot, so we'll just say 100 here. Now what it's going to do is insert all of the information for you, everything from notes on the item, the actual name for the item with a link back to that spot within the cost book, It will show your quantity, your cost, unit, well, it can pull in markup automatically, but really everything that you need to will be pulled in automatically, all of the information necessary. But if I click off of this, you'll see that there is a distinction between ones that have been added from a cost book and everything added in manually. And that is that link directly back to where we found it in the cost book. So if we click on that, it will automatically open up the items database from where we inserted it. Now, when coming from RS means, like I showed you a second ago, it will include notes automatically, which will be by default in the left-hand column there. And that is going to allow you to keep track of just the typical notes that you would need for the labor or quantity, or whatever the actual classification is. You'll also be able to insert your own notes here. So if you find these relevant, you can certainly leave them in here, but you'll have general notes, bid notes, and field notes that you can track on your own. So all of these notes, any of the three type, can be included in proposals and a lot of different reports. So there's really a lot of functionality in being able to include additional details. But when including the quote from RS means, the notes are going to be, that is, they're going to include the daily output, man hours, the types of crews, the hourly rates, and so on. Okay, so back to the project totals. Let's go ahead and take a look at, let's see. Let's just look at all the different categories that we have. So you'll see that the quickest way of navigating through the different categories, especially if it's a large estimate, and those tabs span past the screen, will be this drop-down list, and you'll see everything that you have access to. So let's look at our fireplaces and trim. Okay, so let's take a look at our dimensions tool, and we're going to take a look at how that can be used. So I'm going to use it for our masonry labor here. Well, no, that doesn't have any cost. Okay, so we can first of all edit our dimensions at any points. So when we were walking through the project creation wizard, you'll saw that these pulled from the actual project type, but we didn't give them any value. So in your estimate, you have a few columns displayed by default, but to add additional columns like the dimension column, all you would have to do is right-click on the column headers here and choose, just by checking them, which ones you want displayed at any given point. So we're going to turn on dimensions here. Okay, now a few other ones, actually, let me go back and add a few other ones that we'll talk about. Classification we'll talk about. We can look at resources. Taxes are pretty straightforward, so we won't take a look into too much detail there. And then we'll cover the rest of these in our webinar actually tomorrow with Taylor, covering QuickBooks. These different types of cost will pull in from QuickBooks. As I showed you earlier on the profitability chart, the actual cost can pull in automatically, and then your variance will calculate off of that. Your committed costs and your invoiced amounts you can pull in manually, giving you the option of what types you would like to include. Okay, so now on the classification here, you'll see, just like we saw in RS means, that this is broken down by material, labor, subcontractor, equipment, and other. So you're able to set that when you're building your estimate or your estimate template. You'll be able to use that in a number of ways. So not only to break out your classification costs, but you're going to be able to use that to filter a number of reports, to filter your purchase orders, a lot of different ways that can be used. All right, so let's back up to where I was just kind of got sidetracked from with our dimensions. So in the dimensions tool, you can reference the dimensions that we could have set earlier. So let's say that we want, for our entire main floor, it's going to be 1,500 square feet. Now, first of all, you'll see that some of these have formulas in them. Now, you, again, just like the workflow, you can customize this any way that you want. You can add additional dimensions here. This total finished area is going to sum up A through E here, and same with total unfinished area, summing up the second half. But from this, we can say that, let's find maybe some flooring here. Okay, floor covering. So we'll say that our hardwood flooring, that we're going to use that in the entire main floor. So we're going to set our dimension, you'll see the entire list here, to main floor. What that will do, first of all, either is apply to a single line item or an entire subcategory, and it will apply that quantity that we set in for the main floor's dimensions. Now that will then multiply times the cost that you have within the estimate or the estimate template, giving you your total price. So that's really just a quick way of setting the quantities for any given component on your job. Okay, so let's go back to the project totals page again and scroll down to the very bottom. Now, at the end of the estimate, like I showed you earlier, is the company overhead margin sheet. That's going to allow you to calculate your profit on top of the project subtotal. So currently our project total is listed at $379 and some change. Now, that's no company overhead margin applied. So I'm going to select that sheet and add in either a percentage or a dollar value on top of the project total. So for example, if I set maybe an 8% total for my overhead, you'll see that that will apply to every other component within the job. Now, we can also, within each of these different sections, apply a lump sum. So say we wanted maybe a $5,000 contingency. Just adding the lump sum in instead of a percentage. Each of these 5 different sections work the same way. Now, one other thing I would like to show you while we're on that page would be the unit here. So there's 2 different ways of using your company overhead margin. Percent cost will apply to everything within your category sheets. Percent margin also will mark up everything else within this company overhead margin sheet. So just to kind of clarify, that 8% with company margin is now marking itself up as well, and this 5,000. So it's applying 8% to the 5,000 as well as every component of your job, where percent of cost will ignore everything else on this page. Hopefully that's clear enough. Again, if you guys have any questions on anything that we've covered here, if you'd like to go into more detail, that is one topic that a lot of people have a little trouble understanding. So feel free to give me a call or any of our other product specialists if you'd like more of a detailed breakdown. Okay, now in addition to your company overhead margin markups, that again is an overview or just a kind of a percentage or lump sum on top of the entire job, but you have 2 other ways of marking up your estimate. So you have the ability to set line item markups. So if you want to set the markup for different items, let's say go back to floor covering here. Let me turn that column on. Right here. Okay, so you have the ability to either apply this markup to an entire subcategory or to individual line items. So if we want to either add on an additional markup from a company overhead margin, or if you just prefer to do it this way, you'll have the same option of percentage or fixed amounts to mark up this individual line. Okay, so that's a subcategory and line item. Those are 2 additional ways. And then the last would be through the classifications. So we talked about the importance of classifications earlier. This is another way that you can use them by choosing how to mark up your job by material, by labor. If some, say your material needs to be marked up but labor doesn't, this is one way of doing it. So everybody really has their preference of how to create these markups. We give you 4 different options to do it whatever way that you would like, and you can even use combinations of them. Okay, let's see. So the right-hand sidebar here now is going to show you a quick breakdown of the cost. The costs we see here are going to be the same costs that you will see for the job in the financial graph that we looked at earlier. Now, the base estimate here is going to be the original contract sum. Your estimated value is going to be the same with any additional change orders that we've added on. And then our actual cost will pull from QuickBooks again, your bills, paychecks, checks, credit card charges. Overhead is broken down here, as well as all of your variances. Now, let's look at the cost by classification. It's pretty straightforward there. So we've been talking a lot about classification. That will just show you the breakdown. And then we have cost by type. So the cost by type will show you a different breakdown, which will be concerned with the type column, which is usually on the left-hand side of your estimate. So you'll see that you're able to keep track of your estimated costs, what you project for this particular part of the job to cost, allowances to manage budgets that you're given for specific components, options, which are great for upgrades or just decisions that haven't been made yet for your client, and then change orders. Anything added onto the original base estimate will be considered a change order, which will be kept track of within ConstructionSuite and within QuickBooks as basically a sub-job with its own estimate. So the next thing I would like to show you concerning allowances is going to be one of our reports that will create a list of all of the allowances for your clients. So let's go ahead and we'll just change this one to an allowance here to give us something to work with. Let's find one that has a little more cost as well. This will work. Okay, so now that we have some allowances, let's take a look at that report. So under our reporting tab and under custom reports, we'll see our allowances. The options, which is another of those types, will be pulled in here as well. And then your change order documents, you'll be able to generate contracts or proposals for those individual change orders added onto the base estimate. But we're going to launch the allowance. Okay, so we're going to walk through the wizard here real quick, and this is going to create a document in OnPoint, which is our word processor. So you'll say that we only have those two subcategories that we added on now, but we can send this to our client so that he can have that information on hand. He can see really where you stand on those individual allowances. So to send information or files from ConstructionSuite, and once we get done generating this, I'll show you that we can either email it or directly upload it to ConstructionOnline. So from this wizard, and really any wizard, any document, you have pretty much full control over what's going to be generated. So you can choose which columns are shown. You can turn those on and off as you would like to. Even if you generate this and then decide you don't want one, you'll be able to right click and delete that column. Now you can choose whether or not to include the tags and markup. Since you're sending this to a client, sometimes you need to show them the markup, sometimes you don't. So it's completely up to you. And then a few other formatting issues. You can set colors for the individual categories and subcategories if you would like to customize that. But we're going to go ahead and generate that. All right, and here we go. So let's take a look first at the top here with a couple of things that are going to be in common for all documents and contracts. First of all, you're able to insert your letterhead or logo automatically into the document just to really give it a more professional feel, and you can format that any way that you want. Now, the second thing that's going to be in common for all of them are what we call auto-doc fields, and that's what these blue fields here are. So those pull in information automatically that is relevant to the document. So if this is a document for a client, it will pull in their information, a proposal or a contract, something like that. If it's for a vendor, a materials list, request for quote, it will pull in their information. Typically, they all will pull in the project information and your information, though. Now, this particular document will pull in a chart view of all of the allowances and subtotals for those allowances that we have within the estimate. So just a quick example of how a document will look. A number of them have charts like this to quickly format the information. Some of them don't. Some of them give you the option one way or the other, such as proposals. If you just want a simplified breakdown, you can not use the chart. You'll have just the name and then the price column, or you can have it in chart form having most of this information that we're looking at here actually pulled into it. Okay, now in addition to the allowance type, you're going to have the ability to set options as well. So let's swap this now to an option. So this, as I told you, this will give you the option to keep track of any kind of upgrade or just a component of the job your client hasn't decided on, but you still want to be able to keep track of what the cost will be for that. So you'll be able to not have this apply into your project total. Now, once they make that decision, if your base estimate has been accepted, then you can turn that into a change order. If it has not been accepted yet, we'll just swap that over to estimate and we'll calculate into your project total the same way that any other estimated cost would. So just like with our allowance, we'll have a report for the options and just, again, pulling anything marked as an option into that document pretty much with the same format. Now that we look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see that our options and allowances amounts have changed automatically as we've made these adjustments. So now that we've taken a look into creating changes, or that is options and allowances, we're going to, we've gone over how to add markups to our items. We've also looked at how to insert items from our database, update quantities using our dimensions. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can present this information to our client. So once I'm finished with the estimate and I'm ready to present it to the client, I would typically generate the proposal document that I've been mentioning to you. So under the reporting tab, that's not really under one of these categories here that we have broken down for the rest of the documents. Since this is one of the main ones, we have its own wizard here. This gives you a lot more breakdown of information that you can choose whether to or not to share with your clients. And we'll go through some of the main points, but probably not all of it. Okay, so we'll swap to a residential template. Now here's where those auto-doc fields will populate from I showed you earlier. You can automatically insert your letterhead. And for the proposal itself, you have 6 different templates. So you can modify these different ways if you like to have different options for your proposal. Whatever you would like to do to these, you can edit them from the Edit Template button underneath each of them. Excuse me. Okay, but let's go ahead and move along. So like I showed you when we created the job, you can insert the scope of work, your special conditions, base price information, whatever information you need to share with your client can be pulled in here. You can type it in directly here, or if you created or typed it in when you inserted the project, it will pull in automatically. You can also show them a dimension breakdown if you would like. So that finished area or the main floor that we used earlier, if you'd like to show them that breakdown, you can. Now this page is really where we get into the more detailed information, where you really have control over exactly what they see. Now you control exactly what cost information is pulled into here, so you'll see that how we present our company overhead margin is up to you. You can separate it out to where they can see exactly how much that company overhead margin is, or you can prorate it into your categories so that it will divide it up proportionally through the rest of your job. Now you can include any notes, just like the one we saw with that RS Means quote earlier, general bid and field notes. Now if you generate this proposal the way that I was telling you about with just the basic information, name and cost, these will pull in directly underneath the relevant category, subcategory, or item. Now if you print the project totals as a table, it will pull in at the bottom underneath the table. So again, to have more information, we'll just click this option right here to use the table. We can choose to include our items as well if we want that much detail. If we do that, we'll also be able to hide the individual line item costs while still showing them the actual items that are components of your job. Now backing up, we have something else added in here with our new version, ConstructionSuite 6, in that you're able to keep track of your phases and rooms for the individual job breakdown. So say if you want to give them a breakdown based off of the kitchen versus the bath or whatever other components you have, you can use the phase and room really however you would like to. Okay, so just like with the other wizard we saw, we can turn the columns on and off as we'd like, and we can also show a classification breakdown just like on the right hand side here for them. Alright, let's go ahead and finish that and take a look. We're just going to briefly look at this since the information is pretty much the same as the other one we looked at. Let's take just a second since it's going to have more information in it. And then once it generates, I'll just show you quickly how we can modify this even after you have created it. If you want to delete any column, rows, it's fully customizable. You can even change around the wording or the text within the chart itself. So you'll see that this particular version of the proposal pulls in the total base price, your allowances, your options, all pulled in separately. And then you would have, just like we saw, the table pulling in the individual line item breakdown or subcategory and category breakdown, just depending on which options you chose. But once you've made your modifications, you can for instance, change the blue here for our AutoDoc fields to black with just the one click of this button. Once you've made whatever changes you would like, you're ready to send this out to your client. You now have a beautiful presentation to present to them. You're able either to email it, as I was telling you earlier, or to upload it to ConstructionOnline would be this button right here. Now with ConstructionOnline, if you haven't looked at it yet, we have what's called ClientLink and TeamLink. And that will allow you to share it with anybody external to your company, your internal employees, without even having to pay for their access. So they would access that through your public profile, which is basically a website that is included within your membership to ConstructionOnline, and they have access to whatever you've chosen to show with them, whether it be documents like we see here, contracts, so you can share the budget with them. Schedules will pull into their calendar if you choose to. They can even make decisions on change orders or design decisions through our selection picker. Anything that you need to share with them, you have full control over, and they'll be able to access for free. But that we will actually be covering in Friday's webinar, and that's actually going to be a special webinar this week instead of the typical overview. That's going to be Amanda and Taylor showing you guys around and answering any questions that you have, instead of Rachel, who would be typically doing that. She's actually off in Mexico this week at one of the builder conferences there, kind of focusing on our international expansion. But yeah, so let's go ahead and move on. So in addition to the presentation package available with the proposal and the other documents pulling from the estimates, you have a number of contracts included within your software as well. So once they've taken a look at this proposal, they're ready to move forward, ready to sign a contract, we'll go back to the Contracts and Documents tab here, Document Templates, and then here are all of our contracts. By the way, all the ones that we've been looking at so far are in the report template, so anytime you need to modify one, you'll just come here, right-click, and edit that. But to our contracts. And you'll see that there's a number of different categories here of contracts. You'll have really anywhere from 141 to 204, I believe, just depending on which version of ConstructionSuite that you have. But you'll be able to modify these the same way as any of our other templates and use these to generate your contracts. So let's just launch one of these. Okay, so we'll put this in our Eagles Landing job. And we can go ahead and assign Alice here as well. Okay. So now, just like within our other documents, you'll have your AutoDoc fields in blue here, but within the contracts, you'll also have a number of other fields in blue that will not be AutoDoc fields. So these, again, are in blue really to draw your eye to it, but these are ones that really the software wouldn't know how to pull that information into. So it's meant to draw your eye to it so that you can fill that information in. Now, if any of this will be the same from job to job, again, you can save that into the template, but simply to generate the contract, you just launch it, run through, change all the blue numbers, and then it will be modified for the individual jobs themselves. So, like I said earlier, if you need to change any of these articles, add your own articles in, change anything with the actual acceptance down at the bottom, completely customizable, anything you need to modify, you certainly will be able to. Now, as with the proposal, once you're done with the contract, you'll be able to either email this out to your client or upload it to ConstructionOnline. So the main difference I wanted to show you here was the additional fields that you would need to address. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Okay, so back in the estimate, let's take a look at how you can assign and keep track of your resources. So when you assign a resource, let's see here, you just click on that option, and it will pull your contacts list, which will have really everybody. So we'll have your vendors, your subcontractors, your clients, anybody that you have within the system in this list. Now you can use the grouping to filter down all of your subs, your vendors, or even go into individual type breakdown like I have here with painters and plumbers, electricians, and so on. But from our alphabetical list, we'll just assign Ajax Supply to this. We can apply that to everything in the subcategory. But when you assign a vendor here, whether it be in estimating and scheduling or really most places where you'll use them, it's going to notify you if they have an expired or expiring insurance, certificates, licenses, bonds, anything that you need to keep track of, and it will let you know that you need to address that or just update their information. Now, if you do just need to update it, you can do so by finding the contact in the Contacts tab in ConstructionSuite right here. You click on their information, you can navigate to that field, or with the new system, we actually have a tab specific to that information. So with the Insurance and Certificates tabs, you'll be able to see everybody in your system and whether or not they have insurance or any other type of certificate. So since I don't have an example here, let's go ahead and add one. So we'll be able to assign any of the default insurance types here, or you can add in your own. So we'll say that this is workman's comp. Now, we can set the expiration date, so whether it be 3 months after you set this or however you would like, that is when it will start to notify you. Well, 30 days before that. So if I bring this down, you'll see the quick navigation here at the top. You'll be able to quickly navigate through the guys that need to be addressed within 30 days to see from that list without having to go through every individual contacts, who you need to take a look at, who you need to call and update their information. And of course, with the expired as well, you'll be able to do the same thing. But that's really meant to use this system to where it doesn't get to that point, to where you're always covered, you're protected, making sure that your guys are protected as well. Okay, so but the actual information you'll put in here is pretty straightforward. And we'll just cancel that for now. All right, so when assigning the subcontractors or vendors in the estimate, if I click the first line, like I showed you before, and this would be the same for the markup or a number of other places within the estimating, it automatically prompts me to apply it to the full subcategory. If you have the typical vendor that you would use on every job, So vendor or subcontractor, any kind of resource, you can set that relationship within the estimate template so that you're not having to assign your team every job. Now, from the Estimate tab, you have the ability to create additional reports. Let's see. So additional reports, including your vendor reports, which will give you the ability to, here we go, send requests for quotes, materials list, purchase orders to your guys. Whatever information you need to pull from the estimate into those documents, you'll be able to. So, as I was telling you earlier, this is one of the main places where those resources come into I guess to where they're useful for you. So once this comes up, just a couple differences between the other ones we've looked at, and then we'll move on. Okay, so from this wizard, same options as you typically would have. You'll be able to filter down to specific parts of the job. So if this is the lumber yard that you're saying this to, you can filter down to framing or anything else that would have lumber components. You can filter by classification, so specifying whether it is your vendor or a subcontractor, whoever that may be. And again, you'll be able to choose which columns are showing. Now, what's different with this wizard is that you're able to send this out to multiple people, being a request for quote. Usually you would need requests from, or quotes that is, from multiple vendors or subcontractors. So you'll see if we add 2, 3, however many we need in here, it's going to generate multiple reports for them. So they'll be the same thing except for the AutoDoc fields. We'll pull in their information into each of them so that you'll be able to send those out separately. Okay, first one's done, and there's our second one. Okay, so you see here we have Abernathy Brothers Supply pulling in all the same information as with Ajax. So each of them will have just the table, kind of like what we looked at earlier, but this one will pull in the actual structure of the part of the job that you chose, and then it will leave a lot other than the quantity and the units blank, so that they'll be able to fill in their cost per unit and calculate the extended cost, sales tax, everything that they're actually going to be charging for you in that bid. And then they would be able to send this back to you. So if you're uploading this to TeamLink to share with them, they'll be able to download it, fill it out, upload it directly back into their files within TeamLink so that you'll have access to that. And that same thing goes for contracts for your clients, anything that actually needs to be adjusted. Okay, so in addition to creating the request for quote, you'll be able to create your materials list. So providing that to your project manager or site superintendent in the field, you'll be able to create that list, which will summarize all of the items that are marked as materials. You also, let me just go back to that list actually. So you'll also be able to generate a purchase order or subcontracts in this way as well, or create a proposal request for change order that you'll be able to send out to your guys. Now, there are a lot of ways that these tools are going to allow you to create nice looking vendor reports depending on the resources that you establish. So now that we've assigned some resources, we've completed our contract, let's go ahead and say that we are ready to begin recording what we have begun to pay for this job. So I'm going to choose one of the default views here. So let's go to the View tab, Predefined Views, and let's just go to the Standard View. Okay, now that's going to just eliminate some of the columns that we don't need at this point. And I'm actually, change my mind. Let's change it to financial so that we can take a look at the actuals. Now, that will turn on the actual column as well automatically, but you'll be able to insert in your cost manually here, or again, pulling them in manually or automatically from QuickBooks. Now, whatever you put in here, it will calculate out the variance automatically. So say that we only spent actually $1,900 on our installation labor for the deck. You'll see that we're under budget by $58. Now, if we go over budget, it will tell us the same, except it's going to be sure to let you know by having it in red there that you are over budget. And that's going to do that for individual items, subcategory, subtotals, and categories as a whole. Now, that will allow you to also pull into our financial reports. So back to our reporting tabs, our financial report, whether you integrate with QuickBooks or not, there's going to be a lot of great tools for you here to compare your job totals, where you have estimated what you've actually spent, what you've invoiced for to date, what you've committed with your purchase orders, comparing really any of those totals in one easy to read document. And again, now with the new system, with the WIP reporting, all of that's also going to fill into the WIP reporting automatically. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look real quick at our change orders. So we've looked at the other three types. Change orders, again, would be to keep track of anything added on to the original estimate. So this is going to create either a new subcategory or convert one that we're currently selected. And you can also add multiple subcategories into one change order. So if your change order spans multiple categories throughout the job, you could still compile that into one, but we're just going to create a new one for now. You'll be able to name it any way that you would like. That would help you keep track of the actual information that's included within the change order, whatever description that you would like. The rest of this doesn't matter too much. This last screen, though, you'll have the option to either create a new subcategory with this name, deck materials, or we can convert everything within that subcategory into a change order. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to convert it. Typically, you would use the first option, though. Now, keep in mind that markup may still be added to the items, so even though when you create these change orders, you don't necessarily have to add one, if you have material markups turned on, it still may apply automatically, just depending on how your default settings are. Now, your company over in margin will never apply to any of these change orders, so if you do want to mark up anything that is added on past the base estimate, you will need to use the either classification or individual line item markups that I showed you guys earlier. So now once this change order generates, we'll take a look at the report for it. But as I mentioned to you earlier, you have a proposal option if you're submitting this change order for your client's review, or you have the contract to show how the change order is going to affect the overall budget. For our example, let's look at the contract. And of course, like all the other ones that we've looked at, we'll have the option to edit the templates from this wizard and choose exactly what's included. So we'll choose that change order that we just created. It will pull in all the information automatically. Here would be our proposal and the columns that are available in that proposal. And you'll also be able to create that contract. Let's just generate a fixed fee with the table to show you what that looks like. But this will pull in just the cost breakdown of the individual items within that change order. And then at the bottom, just like the other contracts that we took a look at, you'll have the acceptance. Now, the main thing here is going to be that it will show your original contract sum before any change orders, just your base estimate. If you have previous change orders, that will total into this revised contract amount. Here's the one we just created, change order-wise that is, and then our total after they accept this contract. So that would be the main thing to look at here. And then you'll also be able to show them or have them acknowledge how much that this is going to affect your schedule as well, how many days and the adjusted date. Okay. And of course, as I'm sure you guys know, that change orders are very important to make sure that you're not losing money on anything that is being modified. Just keeping track of the change orders within the estimate and then these actual contracts are going to protect you. Okay, so let's so once they agree to that change, we can go back to the estimate and accept this. If you are using QuickBooks for your accounting and you're wanting to send this to QuickBooks, it would give you the ability to send that as the subjob, as a sub-estimate, as I mentioned earlier. Since we're not really covering that in today's session, I'm just going to cancel out of that though. But now once this is accepted, it will pull into the project total, it will pull into all of our financial graphs today. So if we go back to the main ConstructionSuite screen, for our, let's look at our WIP reporting here. Okay, and here's Eagles Landing. Well, let's go ahead and make sure that that's saved and pulled in. Sometimes it takes just a second to update that WIP reporting, but it will pull in automatically. I think the check's about every 15 minutes or so, but it would actually update all of this for you without you actually having to do anything. So we'll come back to this in a minute, see if it has updated, but for now we'll just go ahead and move along. So far we've taken a look at how to create the estimate that we've been using one of our templates. We've looked at how we can change that estimate so that we can add more details. We can delete categories or subcategories that we won't be using. We've shown how to create reports for our clients, subcontractors, and vendors. And we've also shown you how to create a proposal that is going to summarize that information that we've entered, generate the contract after that has been reviewed, and then you can record that, what you have paid, and any changes made to the current job. So now that we've spent all the time doing that, let's take a look at how we can turn all of this into a template that can be used again so that you're not duplicating that effort next time you have a similar job. All the details and time that we spent can be pulled into that template, and you choose exactly what is kept and what is not. So I can take this estimate that we've been using, save it as a template just by going to Save As here, Save As Template. Very easy. So all we have to do is choose what category. Of course, it would be an estimating. You choose what type of job it would be, and we'll name it. All right, so I'll just say it's my template here. Okay, now when we save it, this is what really the main thing I wanted to show you. You don't necessarily have to save everything that is in this project estimate into the template. You can choose what to remove. Typically, some cost resources might be saved while quantities are pulled out, because that would, for the most part, just depending on the type of work that you guys do, would change from job to job. So that way, if you pull the quantities out when you launch this new template, that's all you have to do. Go in, find the materials that are going to be used in this job, insert in the new quantities, and your estimate is complete. Your project total will be updated. Everything that you need will then be done for you. Okay, so let's, I will just say that I'm going to remove the quantities. And then we'll take a look at where this is pulled in now into the wizard that we have created it. And while we're waiting on that to save, we'll just go back to where we're going to activate it, that is. Okay, so it's started to create it. But either way, we don't have to wait for all of that to finish, but you'll see that it is now in our templates. Once it gets done writing all the values that we've inserted into that, it will finish up, and then you'll be able to pull that in from the actual estimate wizard as well that we originally took a look at. So today what we've seen with ConstructionSuite estimating is going to allow you to create estimates that are really more powerful, have a lot of flexibility with customization. You're also able to keep track of your estimated cost. It's going to allow you to keep track of your subcontractors, who's responsible for each different section of your job. You're also going to be able to create reports and documents, track insurance, generate beautiful, custom, professional-looking reports for your clients, and easily do it all over again by using the templates that we've been working on and that we've modified. So that's really all the information that we're going to cover today. If you have additional questions, as I've said at a couple of points, feel free to give me a call. Again, this is Corey, so you can call us at 800-700-8321. My direct extension is 160. My email address here is wgilley, so that's WGILLEY at UDA1.com. Or any of our product specialists, again, can go into more detail if you would like to recover anything that we've taken a look at, or if there's anything we didn't cover that you need to see. I'll be happy to speak with you, so just give us a call. But thank you for joining me, and you guys have a great day.